Clara stood at the edge of the grand ballroom, her hands folded tightly in front of her. The hall sparkled with golden lights, filled with music, laughter, and the chatter of well-dressed guests. Tonight was Ethan's birthday, her older brother, the man everyone called a genius, the rising star in the tech world. All around the room, people toasted to him, praising his brilliance, his company, his future. Clara had come quietly, hoping to slip in and at least say a simple happy birthday. Their relationship had not been warm for years, but he was still her brother. She thought maybe, just maybe, tonight would be different. She carried a small box in her bag, a gift she had saved for despite her modest earnings, a leather notebook, like the one their late mother used to keep. But before she could approach Ethan, Vanessa, his glamorous fiancée, spotted her. Vanessa's red lips curved into a cold smile as she took Clara's arm and pulled her closer to the group of powerful guests gathered near Ethan. "Look who decided to show up," Vanessa said, her voice sharp but sweet enough to carry. "Clara, the famous sister. Though I'm not sure what she does these days besides existing." A few people chuckled politely. Clara felt her cheeks burn. She opened her mouth to respond but couldn't find the words. Vanessa continued, tilting her head as though curious. "It must be nice living in your brother's shadow. No pressure to achieve anything. Just ride on his success." The group laughed louder this time, not cruelly but with the careless ease of people who thought it was all in good fun. To them, Clara was invisible, a nobody. Clara glanced at Ethan, silently begging him with her eyes to stop this, to say something, anything. But he only tightened his jaw and looked away. Then, to her horror, he signaled the security guards. "She doesn't belong here," Ethan said loudly, his voice cold and final. "She's embarrassing me. Take her out." The words cut deeper than any insult. Clara froze as two guards stepped forward, their hands hovering at her arms. The music and chatter swirled around her, but inside, she felt empty, hollow. She didn't resist, she didn't fight. She only let them lead her away as Vanessa smirked and Ethan returned to his guests, raising a glass as though nothing had happened. Behind her, the ballroom glittered brighter, laughter and cheers rising as the party carried on. Ahead of her, the hallway stretched long and silent. Clara walked with steady steps, but her heart was breaking. She had come to celebrate her brother, but he had chosen to throw her out like she was nothing. And in that moment, surrounded by noise she no longer belonged to, Clara realized how alone she truly was. Clara was once the co-founder of Ethan's company. In the early days before the offices, investors, and headlines, it had been just the two of them working late nights in their father's garage. Ethan was the big dreamer, always talking about the future, while Clara was the steady hand, organizing plans, managing numbers, and keeping track of small details. She believed in him and in the idea, even when no one else did. When their father passed away, he left both children equal shares of the company. Clara thought this was fair. They had built it together, after all. But as the company started to grow, things changed. Ethan began speaking to investors, and in those meetings, Clara noticed how he always introduced himself as the founder, while calling her his sister who helps out. At first she ignored it. She told herself he was just nervous, just trying to simplify things. But it only got worse. Ethan started to suggest in private conversations that Clara wasn't really cut out for the business world. He told others she was too emotional, too distracted, not sharp enough to deal with tough decisions. What hurt most was that people believed him. Ethan had the charm and confidence their father once had, while Clara often stayed quiet, focused on the behind-the-scenes work. The final break came during a heated argument about the company's direction. Clara wanted them to slow down and make sure their systems were stable. Ethan wanted speed, growth, and flashy results. Their words turned sharp, old wounds spilling out in the fight. He accused her of holding him back. She accused him of forgetting the sacrifices she made. By the end of that night, Ethan pushed her aside completely. He convinced the board she wasn't competent, that her shares were a gift from their father, not something she had earned. Clara was devastated. She had spent years balancing her studies, caring for their sick mother, and working endless hours to build the company from nothing. She had skipped nights out with friends, ignored her own dreams, and even sacrificed her health at times. All of it so Ethan's vision could succeed. And in return, he had erased her from the story. Now, years later, Clara lived a very different life. She rented a small apartment in a quiet neighborhood, far from the glass towers of Ethan's world. Her income came mostly from teaching part-time at a community college, where she lectured on business basics to young students who dreamed big, but didn't yet know the price of ambition. Her clothes were simple, her life modest. Yet inside, she carried a storm of emotions. Some days she felt invisible, as if the world had forgotten her. Other days, depression weighed her down, making it hard to even get out of bed. She often thought of her mother, whose illness she had managed almost alone. Her mother used to call her the strong one, the one who kept everything together. But Clara no longer felt strong. Still, resilience lived somewhere deep within her. Even though her brother had taken her voice in the company, he hadn't taken her mind. Clara still read, researched, and kept up with the industry. She guided her students with patience, encouraging them to think critically and not just chase quick wins. They admired her kindness, though few of them knew how much pain she carried behind her quiet smile. At night, when she was alone, Clara sometimes looked through old photos. There was one of her and Ethan as children, laughing while building a cardboard office in their living room. Another showed them in the garage, their hands dirty with wires and notebooks spread across the floor. In those pictures, they looked like a team. But those days felt like another lifetime. The bond between them, once unshakable, had become a wound that never fully healed. Clara wanted to believe her brother still loved her somewhere deep down, but his actions said otherwise. He had chosen ambition over family, pride over partnership, and she had been left in the shadows, carrying the pieces of a broken relationship that once meant everything. Despite it all, Clara was not weak. Life had tested her again and again, and though she was scarred, she was not destroyed. Her intelligence remained sharp, her heart still capable of hope, even if it was buried beneath hurt. She lived quietly, but within her lay the quiet strength of someone who had survived disappointment and betrayal. And though she didn't yet know it, the time was coming when she would no longer be silent. After being humiliated and thrown out of the party, Clara walked home in silence. The laughter and music from the ballroom still echoed in her ears, but inside she felt hollow. Her brother had treated her like a stranger. Even worse, like a shameful burden. She thought the night would end there, but it was only the beginning of something bigger. A few days later, Clara met her old friend Marcus at a small cafe. Marcus was a lawyer who had known her since college. He listened quietly as she told him what had happened at Ethan's party. His expression hardened, but he waited until she was done before speaking. "Clara," Marcus said gently, "you do know you still own 18% of the company, right? That's not a small share. It's worth millions." Clara looked down at her cup of tea. "I know. But Ethan acts like it's nothing. He's convinced everyone I don't deserve it. Sometimes I start to believe him." Marcus shook his head firmly. "Don't ever say that. You helped build that company. You gave your time, your energy, your youth. That stake isn't a gift, it's your right." Clara was quiet. She wanted to believe him, but years of being pushed aside had made her doubt her own worth. Marcus pulled out a file and slid it across the table. "I've been keeping an eye on Ethan's filings. Something doesn't add up. He's been moving company money into personal accounts, setting up offshore holdings. It's fraud, Clara. And if he's caught, the whole company could collapse." Clara's heart sank. Why would he risk everything like that? "Greed," Marcus answered simply. "And arrogance. He thinks no one can touch him. But here's the thing, you're still a shareholder. If you step forward, you have a voice. You can stop him." Clara stared at the papers, her fingers trembling slightly as she flipped through them. Numbers she had once loved to organize now seemed like heavy stones pressing on her chest. She had tried to stay away from the company for years, telling herself it was better to keep the peace, to avoid more fights. But now, Ethan wasn't just ignoring her. He was trying to erase her completely. Marcus leaned closer. "Ethan has already prepared an offer to buy you out, at a fraction of what your shares are worth. If you sign, you'll walk away with crumbs. That's his plan, to cut you off for good." Clara felt her chest tighten. Of course Ethan would try this. To him, she was nothing but an obstacle, a reminder of a past he wanted to bury. She closed her eyes, and for a moment, she almost gave in to the old voice inside her that whispered she should just disappear, that maybe life would be easier if she let go. But then she remembered her mother's tired smile, the way she used to say, "Clara, You're the strong one. You see things clearly when others don't. She remembered the years in the garage, the nights she worked beside Ethan, believing in something bigger than herself. And she remembered the sting of being dragged out of his party, the humiliation in front of strangers who laughed at her pain. Slowly she opened her eyes. Her voice was calm but steady. No, Marcus. I won't sign. I won't let him erase me. Marcus smiled for the first time that evening. Good. That's the Clara I remember. For the first time in years, Clara felt a spark inside her, small but bright. She had spent so long shrinking back, letting her brother define her worth. But now she realized she still had power. Ethan had betrayed her, yes, but he had also underestimated her. She tucked the file into her bag and stood up. If Ethan wants me gone, he'll have to fight for it. I'm not going anywhere. That night, as she walked home, the city lights no longer looked so cold. The humiliation from the party still hurt, but it had also awakened something in her. She was no longer just the forgotten sister. She was ready to stand her ground. And this time she wouldn't be silent. Clara began spending long evenings with Marcus in his small but tidy office. Piles of papers covered the desk, glowing under the lamp. The two of them went through financial records, receipts, and hidden reports. At first, Clara felt overwhelmed by the numbers, but her old skills came back. She had once been the one to balance the books, to keep track of every cent when the company was still small. Now, as she read through the documents, her sharp eyes noticed things that didn't fit. There, she said one night, pointing to a page. This account doesn't match the reports filed with investors. Marcus leaned over. Good catch. That's another offshore account. He's been shifting money into places no one can easily trace. Layer after layer, the truth unfolded. Ethan had been using investor money for his personal lifestyle. Luxury cars, private jets, expensive properties abroad. He hid it under complicated transactions, but Clara saw the pattern. The more she uncovered, the heavier the weight on her chest grew. Ethan wasn't just reckless. He was dishonest, and his empire was built on lies. When she finally confronted him, the meeting was tense. They sat across from each other in his sleek office, the city skyline glowing behind him. Ethan looked every bit the successful entrepreneur, dressed in a tailored suit, his confidence unshaken. Clara, in her simple blouse and skirt, looked out of place in that world. But her voice was steady. I know what you've been doing, Ethan, she said, sliding the file across his desk. Offshore accounts. Investor money misused. This isn't just dangerous, it's criminal. Ethan laughed, not even looking at the papers. Clara, you've always been dramatic. You think you understand business, but you don't. This is how companies grow. Risks. Calculated moves. You wouldn't know anything about that. Clara's hands tightened in her lap. I know fraud when I see it. You're gambling with everything we built. His eyes narrowed. We built. No, Clara. I built this. You just tagged along. And now you're jealous because you see how far I've gone without you. The word stung. He always knew how to twist the knife. But Clara didn't back down. I'm not jealous. I'm ashamed of what you've become. The conversation ended with Ethan slamming the file shut and ordering her to leave. But the battle was only beginning. Soon Ethan's allies joined in. Vanessa spread rumors at social events, whispering that Clara was mentally unstable, that she was desperate for attention, that she wanted to ruin her brother's success because she had none of her own. Articles appeared online hinting at family drama, portraying Clara as the bitter sister clinging to old grievances. Some of Clara's own relatives called her, urging her to stop causing trouble. Ethan is the pride of this family, one aunt said. Why would you drag his name through the mud? Clara felt her circle grow smaller with each passing day. Friends avoided her calls. Former classmates unfollowed her on social media. Even neighbors whispered. She could feel the walls closing in, the isolation pressing down like a heavy blanket. At night, she lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering how everything had gone so wrong. She thought of their childhood, of simpler times. She remembered when Ethan used to run to her after school, eager to show her the little machines he had built with scraps. He used to say, Clara, you're the only one who understands me. Those words echoed painfully in her mind now. When had he stopped seeing her as a sister and started seeing her as a threat? The memories made her heart ache. She wanted to believe there was still a piece of the old Ethan somewhere inside, but the man she faced now was hardened by pride and greed. One evening, Ethan called her to meet him at a private restaurant. He arrived with his usual confidence, Vanessa by his side. They didn't even wait for food before Ethan laid out his offer. "Sign over your shares," he said, sliding a contract across the table. 18% gone. "In return, I'll give you enough money to live comfortably. And then you disappear from my life, from the company, from everything. That's the only peace you'll get." Vanessa smirked beside him. "It's generous, Clara. Honestly, you should take it. No one wants you here. Why drag this out?" Clara looked down at the papers. The numbers were insulting, far less than her shares were truly worth. But it wasn't about the money. Signing meant letting Ethan erase her completely. Signing meant admitting she had never mattered. Her throat tightened, but she kept her voice calm. "No, I won't sign." Ethan's expression darkened. "Don't be foolish. You'll lose this war. I have the board, the investors, the media. You have nothing." Clara lifted her chin. "I have the truth, and I still have my name. You can try to smear it, but you can't take it from me." The tension between them was thick, the silence that followed heavy with unspoken rage. Ethan finally stood, tossing the contract back into his briefcase. "You'll regret this, Clara." But as Clara watched him walk away, she felt something shift inside her. Fear was still there, yes, but it was no longer in control. She had faced his power, his threats, his attempts to erase her, and she was still standing. She walked out of the restaurant into the cool night air, the city lights shining around her. Her world was smaller now, lonelier, but her resolve was stronger than it had ever been. Ethan had made it clear he would fight with everything he had. And so would she. The boardroom was filled with sharp suits, polished shoes, and the hum of quiet conversations. Reporters and investors were waiting outside, eager to hear about Ethan's new expansion plan. He stood at the head of the long table, his usual confidence shining through as he greeted the board members one by one. The screens behind him glowed with charts and graphs, promising growth and profits. "Today," Ethan began, "I will reveal the next big step for our company. Expansion into new markets, greater innovation, and even stronger returns." The room buzzed with approval. Heads nodded, pens scratched notes, and a few members leaned forward with excitement. Ethan's smile widened. He was ready to shine, ready to prove once again that he was untouchable. But then the glass doors opened. Clara walked in, dressed simply but carrying a stack of files in her arms. Her steps were steady, her face calm. For a moment, the room went silent. Everyone stared, surprised to see her there. Ethan's smile froze. "What are you doing here?" he asked sharply. Clara set the files down on the table and looked at the board members, not at her brother. "Before you listen to his plan," she said clearly, "you need to see the truth." She handed out documents one by one, each page filled with numbers, transactions, and evidence. Murmurs spread across the table as the members began to read. Marcus had helped her prepare everything. Clean, undeniable proof of Ethan's hidden accounts, his misuse of investor money, his lies. "I have already filed a legal injunction," Clara continued, her voice steady though her heart was racing. "As of this morning, the company's accounts are frozen. Until this is resolved, no money can be moved, no deals can go forward." The room erupted. Some members looked shocked, others angry. A few whispered to each other in low voices. Ethan slammed his hand on the table. "This is nonsense," he barked. "She's jealous, she's bitter. None of this means anything." But one of the senior board members raised a hand. "Ethan, these are serious documents. Offshore transfers? Misreported funds? If this is true, your credibility is finished." Ethan's face turned red, his smooth confidence cracking. "Don't listen to her. She's trying to destroy me because she couldn't handle success." Clara finally looked at him. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. "I'm not destroying you, Ethan. You did that yourself." The room grew tense again. She reached into her bag and pulled out another envelope. "I've also made a decision. I am selling my 18% stake. 18% that I helped build. 18% worth $18 million. And I'm selling it, not to you, but to a rival investor group." Gasps filled the air. Ethan froze, his mouth opening but no words coming out. Without her shares, his control was gone. He no longer held the majority. His empire was slipping from his hands. "You can't do this," he shouted, his voice shaking with rage. "You're betraying me, Clara. You're betraying family." Clara's eyes softened for just a moment. "No, Ethan. You betrayed me first. You betrayed family the day you erased me from our company. The day you let them drag me out of your party. The day you chose pride over blood." He took a step toward her, but she didn't move. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't scream. She only spoke quietly, with a strength that filled the room. "I'm done fighting for a place in your shadow. I don't need your approval anymore." The board members watched in silence as Ethan's anger collapsed into desperation. His words tumbled out, but no one listened. The evidence was too strong, the damage too deep. Clara gathered her files, her movements graceful and sure. For the first time, she felt free. She looked at her brother one last time. "Goodbye, Ethan." Then she turned and walked out, leaving behind the glittering table, the shocked faces, and the man who had once been her closest friend. She didn't look back. Her steps were quiet, but inside her heart, she felt something louder than any cheer. Her own voice, steady and strong at last. Clara relocates to a quiet city by the coast, far from the high-rise towers and cold boardrooms that had filled her life for so long. She rents a small apartment with a view of the ocean. The gentle waves a quiet reminder that life moves forward, no matter how deep the pain. For the first time in years, she feels the possibility of peace. Using part of her payout from the sale of her shares, Clara starts a foundation in her mother's name. The foundation supports young women who dream of working in technology, just like she once had. She wants them to have the guidance, resources, and confidence she had been denied. Each day, she meets new students, listens to their dreams, and encourages them to chase those dreams without fear. In helping others, Clara begins to heal herself. Her days are filled with meaningful work, her evenings with simple pleasures, reading, cooking, and long walks along the beach. Slowly, she rebuilds her life. She finds friends who truly care about her, people who celebrate her achievements without judgment. These relationships are different from those she had before. They are built on respect and kindness, not power or influence. Meanwhile, news of Ethan's downfall spreads. Investors discover the extent of his financial misconduct. Lawsuits pile up. Headlines question his integrity and management skills. Vanessa, who had once stood beside him, leaves him when she realizes his empire is crumbling and his credibility is gone. Clara hears the news, but she does not feel joy in his misfortune. She knows that revenge would only chain her to the past. Instead, she feels relief and a quiet satisfaction. The pressure that had weighed on her for years has lifted. She walks through her foundation office, watching young women work on coding projects, collaborating and laughing together. She remembers her mother's words. "Your worth is never defined by those who fail to see it." Clara smiles softly. She is no longer defined by her brother's shadow or his betrayal. She is her own person, capable, respected, and free. Her power is not loud or flashy. It is quiet, steady, and deeply rooted in the choices she has made. She has claimed her life on her terms, not through vengeance, but through dignity, resilience, and strength. As she sits by her window overlooking the ocean, Clara reflects on how far she has come. She thinks of the girl who once sacrificed so much, who was pushed aside and humiliated, and she feels pride in the woman she has become. Every decision she made, every struggle she endured, led her here, to a life of meaning, purpose, and calm confidence. The world may still whisper about her past, but Clara knows the truth. She has finally found herself and nothing can take that away. Clara reflects in her new office, the sunlight streaming through wide windows and casting warm patterns on the wooden floor. Around her, young women work quietly at their computers, coding, designing, and sharing ideas. Their energy fills the room with a sense of purpose and hope. For the first time in a long while, Clara feels that she truly belongs here. She sits at her desk, picking up an old letter she had tucked away years ago. It is from her mother, written in careful, looping handwriting. She unfolds it slowly, reading the words she had read so many times before, but which now feel stronger, deeper. "Your worth is never defined by those who fail to see it," the letter reads. Clara closes her eyes for a moment, letting the words sink in. She remembers the nights she stayed awake, doubting herself, wondering if she had failed, if she had mattered at all. She remembers the years she had worked beside Ethan, the sacrifices she had made, the humiliation she had endured. But she also remembers her mother's gentle voice, always reminding her that she was strong, that she was capable, that her value was hers alone to claim. A gentle smile forms on Clara's face, quiet and soft. It is not a smile of triumph, not a smile of revenge. It is a smile of healing. She feels the tension in her shoulders ease, the weight of the past lifting little by little. The mistakes, betrayals, and pain no longer have power over her. She has survived them. She has learned from them. She has become stronger because of them. She looks around her office again, at the women she now mentors, at the dreams they are building, at the laughter and focus that fill the space. These are the lives she is touching, the futures she is helping to shape. Her influence is quiet, meaningful, and real. This is power of a different kind. The kind that does not need to hurt anyone. The kind that lifts others while keeping one's own heart whole. Clara picks up a pen and writes a note to herself on a clean sheet of paper. I am enough. I am strong. I am free. She sets it down beside the letter from her mother. For the first time, she does not feel the need to compare herself to anyone else, not to her brother, not to anyone who doubted her, not to the world at large. She stands, walking to the window, looking out at the city below. The buildings are tall and imposing, but they no longer feel intimidating. They are part of the world she once sought approval from, but she has stepped outside their shadow. She breathes deeply, letting the air fill her lungs. She feels a calm certainty about the path ahead. Clara does not celebrate Ethan's fall, nor does she dwell on the pain he caused. Instead, she celebrates herself, her courage, her resilience, and the life she is creating. She knows that justice has been served in its own way, not through revenge, but through truth, integrity, and the quiet reclaiming of her voice. A final smile touches her lips as she turns back to the young women in her office. She knows the road ahead will have challenges, but for the first time in years, she feels ready. She is confident, she is free, and she is no longer defined by anyone else's shadow. Clara sits back at her desk, her heart calm, her mind clear, and a soft sense of peace filling her. She has found herself, and that is worth more than anything the world could take from her. Hey friends, thanks for sticking around till the end. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more. See you next time.